Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is diversity in living systems. And we talk a lot about diversity, but I think that there are some nuances that we can explore that hopefully will end up enlightening for all of us. So before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel the deliciousness of that sensation and allow it to bring you present right here, right now, to this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. It is Friday and the weeks just keep flying by. I don't know. I am just amazed at the speed of time these days, at least in my experience. I don't know if that's so for you. The weeks go by and I don't even know, it was a blink, like I don't even know what happened. Anyway, today we're talking about diversity. And this conversation is prompted by our movie night last night for Sustainability Now. If you're interested, by the way, in future movie nights, you can go sign up to our email list at sustainabilitynow.global and you'll get notifications. We don't bomb you with all kinds of spam or anything. We send out 2 reminder emails a week. That's it, pretty much. So Rosalind says it's Friday, TGIF again. Yay. So talking about diversity, the reason this is coming up is that last night on our movie night, we featured an interview that will soon be released with a man named Bill Reed, and I've talked about Regenesis a bit. They are shaping an entirely new paradigm, which is awesome. And that what the paradigm is based on is evolving into life as it is calling for itself. So, and that's probably a really obtuse kind of way to describe it. So when we look at systems, when we look at the kinds of projects, for instance, that we might want to develop, we want to look at it in context of the system, the living system that it's part of. And so in this conversation, one of the things that was discussed is the importance of diversity in a living system, and we've talked about this topic before a little bit, that within the living system, it's diversity that gives it its resilience. And when we talk about diversity in that context, we're not only talking about a variety of species, diversity of species, but we're also talking about a diversity of relationships between those species, like the network of relationships between them. and the diversity of those relationships. And the example that was given, which I thought was brilliant, was in the wild, animals are interacting with each other and with nature, right? In a zoo, they have very, very limited interactions. There may be diversity of species in a zoo, but there's not diversity of relationship. And it's the interconnectedness of these relationships that are foundational to the diversity of a system. So how does that apply to us? We talk about diversity in the workplace. The workplace in so many ways is not especially diverse, right? I mean, especially it's interesting as we look at the consequences of the epidemic. So many people are in greater isolation. Well, not just diversity in the workplace, but let's look also at diversity of relationships and our own resilience. Because I know for so many of us, even though it looks like there might be an end in sight with this whole COVID thing, a lot of us are feeling really weary as a result of all the constraints. Welcome, welcome, Catherine. Welcome back to town. Good to have you joining us. We're talking about diversity and how that's the foundation of resilience, personally as well as in any kind of living system. So through this whole challenge of the past couple years, we have experienced greater isolation. So what's happening as a result of that isolation is that the diversity of our relationships perhaps has shifted to be less diverse. You know, we have been socially isolated. We might have contacts through Zoom, but there's still a sense of I think that there's still, we're social beings. So to be able to get together with people face to face, to be able to hug somebody, to be able to, be in the same room energetically. I know that we can accomplish a lot through Zoom, but it's not a complete replacement in any way for the kind of engagement, social engagement that we need and we thrive on. So the diversity of relationship is something that enables us to be more sustainable, to buoy up our own internal capacity to be resilient and responsive. So Rosalind says, planting an orchard with different types of trees makes them less susceptible to disease because the fungus or pest could be isolated to one patch rather than the whole orchard. That's entirely true. And hey, Rob, welcome back. It's great to have you joining us. We're talking about diversity. So Rosalind, what you're talking about is it's not even just different types of trees, but all different kinds of plants, and recognizing that there's all different kinds of bacteria, and the variety enhances the system. If you look at our agricultural system, it's largely founded in monocropping, which is no wonder we would be experiencing all kinds of blights and rampant disease. If you look at the CAFOs, the factory farms, where they're jamming all kinds of animals, all kinds of the same animals in the same space, where it's all chickens, it's all pigs, it's all cows, of course, when there is a disease, it's going to run through that whole population because there's no diversity, there's no impediment to that plague, so to speak. And so I think we get to look at what kinds of relationships do we have in our lives. I don't think that any one person can fulfill all of our social needs, right? If we have just one friend, for instance, and if we look at the sustainability of that kind of arrangement, if we have only one friend and something goes awry with that friend, then what happens? We're in a place of deep isolation again. And so having relationships, a variety of relationships where, some of our relationships are work relationships, some of our friendships might be more playful than others, some might be more philosophical. We receive different benefits from different relationships. And so cultivating this variety, cultivating this diversity of relationships is something that is nurturing for ourselves. And we can take that even deeper on a very personal level, where, we talk a lot about integrating our many parts, integrating the shadow, for example. And when we are able to be aware of and accepting, and when we're able to metabolize all these different parts of ourselves, it makes us more resilient, right? Because we're able to be compassionate to ourselves for all those aspects. We're able to recognize that we are perfectly imperfect. So, for example, if I know that I accept, I recognize that there are times when I may be reactive, and that's part of being alive. Then when I get reactive, if there's been an altercation, I get to own it. Maybe I get to say, you know what, you're right, I was a jerk, and I apologize. That's not how I would prefer to be interacting with you, for example. And so when we are defending ourselves internally against anything we might consider a flaw, in big air quotes, then when somebody confronts us about that flaw, we might get really reactive if we haven't allowed for ourselves to be the spectrum of behaviors. It's like, as long as you recognize that we're all of it, then a part of it isn't as much of a reflection on your beingness, right? So if I was a jerk, it doesn't mean, if I acted like a jerk, it doesn't mean I am a jerk. It means that sometimes I have jerky behavior. And if I can know that I'm bigger than that behavior, if I can incorporate all these different elements and these different levels of relationship, then I can accept that, own it, and grow from it. I can adapt. I can modify my behavior thank you, Catherine. Catherine says, wise words of wisdom. If I am trying to hold this idea of who I am, and then someone challenges that idea, then there's a battle, right? Because I'm going to go after that person for challenging my notion of who I am, probably because that notion of who I am is fragile, right? If I believe that I'm the smartest person in the room, and you present me with something that indicates an instance that I wasn't necessarily the smartest person in the room in that particular instance, it's challenging my notion of myself, which doesn't allow for the spectrum of experience, right? And so in order to preserve that idea, it's necessary to make the other wrong, right? So if I've challenged you, then you get to make me wrong, and maybe exile me even, because I've challenged something that you've identified with, right? And I think we get to look at the interplay of these different dynamics in our lives because we need to come to a place of building bridges. And part of building bridges is the ability to connect, to make space for other perceptions, other awarenesses, other experiences. And as the more we're able to receive these different aspects of ourselves, the more we're able to receive those aspects of others. And the more responsive we're able to be rather than reactive. So I'm just seeing where when we have a rigid experience of ourselves that is constrained, like this is who I am, don't challenge who I am. I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm the most loving person in the room, I'm the most I'm the richest person in the room, whatever it might be. If that's our identity, if our identity is single focused rather than multifaceted, then how do we bounce back from circumstances that intrude upon those notions, right? So I see the relationship to ourselves has within it all the things, all the identities that we are willing to accept, and the fear of the identities that we don't accept. So if I don't want to look at the places where I've been really arrogant or selfish or self-righteous, or any of these places, if I don't have a willingness to look at that and to own that as, okay, this is an instance, this is a behavior that I recognize in myself, I see that I can be that way, then it's something that we're creating an internal fight about all the time. If we, for instance, it can go the other way as well, I think, is that if we don't trust ourselves, like if we know that I can, let's say I know I can completely fly off the handle in rage, that I can get overtaken by this rage, and it feels like something I can't control. then what's happening within me is this vigilance, this constant vigilance to try not to try to keep that in check, right? And when we can accept that anger, like when we've talked through this week about dialoguing with parts of ourselves. So if we could dialogue with that anger, if we can face that anger instead of trying to just exile it and instead of just trying to control it and contain it, if we can engage with it to understand it more deeply, to learn about its dynamic, that can potentially give us a vehicle to move beyond the anger, right? A lot of us are afraid to face certain emotions because we're afraid that they'll consume us. And the thing is that fear of those emotions consumes us instead. And it also keeps all those emotions anchored in our body and our being and our behavior. So welcome, Nicole. So good to have you here with us. So Nicole says, seeing ourselves like the light spectrum of the rainbow. I love that. That's brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant. Some are more or less developed and shine in different colors. Differences can be beautiful, even in our growth patterns, like stages of a flowering plant. Exactly, Nicole. So in a diverse system, we need all of it. We need all of it. And for ourselves in our lives, we often want to remove the parts that we might have a response of shame or guilt or disappointment or sorrow. And the thing is, when we remove those aspects of ourselves, it's like taking a leg out from under a table, and that table then becomes less stable, right? You might be able to get away with just 3 legs on the table, but if you keep taking legs away, then you're in a real problem space, right? So you want to be able to have that spectrum. So not only are different people perhaps at different frequencies of that spectrum, but we each are a spectrum within ourselves. And there is greater power in that spectrum, greater empowerment in that spectrum than there is in just one frequency of light. So Rosalind says, as our world gets smaller, tolerance is needed. Having diverse relationships in our lives helps us see different points of view, 100%. Our supply chain in food, I'm not sure why there's avocados from Mexico in the grocery store when there's so many farms here in the Central Coast of California. So, oh boy, you just opened a Pandora's box, Rosalind, in terms of supply chain. So we've gotten really spoiled, wanting the foods that we want when we want them, regardless of whether they're locally sustainable. And the strawberries and blueberries from Chile, for example, because we want to be able to have these things at certain times of year. That's a whole other story about sustainability, right? And also looking at diversity within certain ecosystems and our social ecosystems and our supply chain ecosystems too. So for instance, if we're dependent on avocados from Mexico, and avocados grow in our local area, and then what happens if there's a transportation strike or there's disruption of transportation? Our food supply gets disrupted. And so there's a very compelling case for eating local, eating regionally. So Nicole says, mindfully pruning or lopping parts of ourselves that are dead weight to allow more growth and life force in us will help, like pruning plants and its dead branches. I think that that's a beautiful analogy, Nicole. And at the same time, we get to recognize those parts that we're pruning and honor them. We talked about the phoenix and the myth of the phoenix, how the phoenix, the newly arisen phoenix, encases the ashes of the previous phoenix in a sacred egg that it then delivers to the altar of the gods. So, I think we get to honor those parts of ourselves that we have evolved beyond. So anyway, diversity. So diversity in recognizing who we are as humans, and diversity within our relationships, diversity within our social circles, within our eating, like eating diversity helps. So anyway, that's it for this morning, because I have an appointment I have to run to. And I so much love to you, so much appreciation for your engagement in these conversations. Hopefully we're expanding our minds and our experience and our capacity and our compassion. And that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to check out all the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network, Enlightened World Living, EWN, One with the Earth. And I wish you all a marvelous and inspiring weekend, and so much love to you. All the best.